Okay, so now we're going to talk about the equipment, the machines to do the buffing. There's all kinds of range that you can use. So you can start with a very simple one if you just want to try it out on a little piece. Some cars don't have hardly any stainless. You might have a few pieces on the dash of your car. You might have one or two pieces on the outside that are very small. So you don't want to invest in a great big buffer just for that. So you can just get a very small sew-in wheel like this, spiral sew-in wheel, and put it on your drill. Higher speed the better. If you can get your drill at the highest speed, that would be the best. So you can either put the part in the vise or put the drill in the vise and then use your small part with this. And you can use any of the compounds on these kind of wheels. These are both spiral sew-in. You don't have to get fancy, and if you're just doing little pieces, you don't have to get fancy and get a Sizewell wheel or anything like that. You just very simple wheels will work just fine. So that's if you've got just very little bit to do, or you're really on a budget and that's all you want to do. But keep in mind that the bigger the wheel, the better it will polish. The faster it will polish. So if you're trying to do 20 pieces of stainless that are 6 feet long on your car, you're going to be working for a long time with this one. Okay, so you want to keep it cheap. You can do a lot of different things. You can go to garage sales. You can pick up something like this for $5-10 sometimes. It's a double spindle. The way I've got it set up might not be the best. You could cut your plywood back like that on both sides and move it out, bolt it to the table, just so that it will you can get your work underneath. When we start polishing, you'll see how you have to get the piece of metal underneath it. And then you might be able to pick up an old used motor at a garage sale for $10, $10 or $15, and then hook it up to a switch, just so you've got an off-on switch, and then you're in business. And of course, I'd be working on the other side I wouldn't be working here. Okay, so this one is a very simple setup too. It just has the one wheel, so you're going to change the wheel more often, but that's okay. This is just a simple little bearing block with a pulley and the motor, and we have a switch on this one as well. The switch at the back there. So you can pick up an arrangement like this pretty cheap, just to get you in the business or get you into doing your own car. And you can put pretty good size wheels on here. This is a good strong motor. In another lesson, we'll go over what size motor you have to use for what size wheel. If you go too big a wheel on a 1/4 horse motor, you'll take a risk of burning out your motor. So in another lesson, we'll go over what size motor you need for what size wheel. So this one actually I have been using for this greaseless compound. So this is just a sew-in wheel, and this greaseless compound, it's quite soft. So I just open it up and start the motor and put it on there, and then I can go at it. And it's this is a 320 grit, so that will help me sand. That might be something I do before I get to the 400, 600 grit sandpaper, and then that will speed up the process a lot by using that. All right, so I'm going to show you a type of grinder that you can just buy and convert it to a buffer. This is just a 6-inch grinding machine. You can take the guards off of it for the polishing purpose. This one happens to have a variable speed on it. The only reason you would use a variable speed usually when you're polishing, you wouldn't really use it for stainless, but you might use it for brass or aluminum. It just makes it a little easier so it doesn't, you're not overworking the aluminum and getting it too hot and stuff like that. The other thing you can polish is with the right wheel and the right compound, you can polish your plastic lenses for the tail lights and park lights and stuff like that on your car. So you want to slow it down for that purpose too, because if you get it too hot, it'll just crack the plastic. Okay, so now if you're short of space in your garage and stuff like that, you don't have a place to actually bolt the buffer down to the floor. You've got a very small garage. This is one way to do it. You can just get an old wheel and leave the tire on it. Some people take the tire off, but then everything starts to vibrate and you find yourself chasing the machine around the room. So it's best to get the wheel, leave the tire on it, and then just get some kind of a setup in the center that'll hold this. I just got a post, and that'll come right out of there. Now I can roll the tire off to the corner somewhere, stick this in the corner, and then it gets it right out of the way so I can get my car into the garage easily. Okay, so this machine is okay the way it is for the beginner. 6 inch isn't the best size wheel. You can 8 inches is not bad. 10 inches the best. Okay, so the only disadvantage of this machine really is that the wheel is quite close to the motor and quite close to the stand. Typically, you work underneath the wheel. It's spinning in this direction forward towards you. So when you're polishing under, you want to stay away from this part of it here. Now, you can polish on top. I actually do that even on a really good buffer sometimes. I just seem to have more control over it sometimes. So it's not too bad. It's a good beginner's machine. Now, what you can do with a machine like this is get yourself an arbor. And you can add that on. You take your wheel off, put this right onto the shaft. There's a couple of set screws that tighten on there. And put your wheel on there. That'll get your wheel further away. So that'll help with this type of machine. The only thing is you got to watch with these things. If it starts to wobble a bit, then make sure these set screws are tight still, because you might have to tighten them once in a while because they seem to loosen up a bit. Okay, so this is just another type of bench grinder. This one is an 8 inch. So you want to be fairly careful what size wheel you use on what size machine. If you're putting 8 inch wheels on a 6 inch machine and you're working it really hard, you can actually slow down the speed of the buffer, and that can cause a problem of heating up the motor, and you might burn the motor out. So with this 8 inch, we can comfortably put an 8 inch wheel on there. And this particular machine gives us a little more room under here so that we can get past the grinder. Now this is bolted down to the floor, and just for space, I bolted it quite close to the wall because normally I'm working on smaller pieces with this machine. So it's bolted down, and that helps to to make it more rigid for when you're polishing. So what I've got on here, I've got a stainless wheel on here for the gray compound, and on the other side I've got green. So on this also you can work on the top. Like I said, most people that polish stainless work underneath the wheel. Sometimes I prefer working on top, depending on what kind of a piece I'm working on. I have better control sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to push up hard enough on the wheel. When you're buffing, you have to be very careful because the buffer is coming towards you, and if you're working on this end, you have to go under, because then it will keep going that way. It'll go past the metal and it won't grab it. If I put this up here and I get this end too close to here, it'll grab it and shoot this possibly across the room and then bend it up or whatever. So you have to be careful not to do that. Okay, so if you really, those two machines I just showed you are good starting machines. If you find that you really like doing this, you might want to do it as a part-time business, or you want to go into full-time business with it. You can get a professional buffer like this. Those two other ones are just bench grinders. You can pick those up for anywhere from $50 to $150. This one's about $1,000. But it works really well, and it has lots of horsepower. So it's got 3/4 horsepower, so we can really work it hard. This will easily work a 10-inch wheel. So you can see the advantage here, how far this is away from the motor and the stand and everything. So you can easily work this piece, and I've got it mounted quite a ways away from the wall. This one is bolted down. A machine like this, you should probably bolt it down, because if the amount of work you're going to do on it, it could move around quite a bit. So you can easily get under there like that with even a wide piece. If you're working on a really wide piece, you can get under there quite easily. Here again, you got to be careful. You can work on the top, but be careful here. That's going to grab that and throw this piece. The other thing you want to be careful of is try to kind of work in the center of your wheel. These are quite wide wheels. Try to work in the center. You get too far over, and it can slip off the wheel and hit up like that, and then you can do some damage to your stainless that now you got to go back to sanding and fix that and stuff like that. So nice thing about this one is I keep two sort of wheels in sequence here. This is the one I would start with. This is a very aggressive rough wheel, and I would I use a stainless compound on that. So I can work on that one, and then when I'm ready, I can move over to here. This would be the next step. It's the same compound, but a softer wheel. So, and if I'm starting to work on this wheel and I look, I didn't get rid of enough, I can just jump back to this one and work on that one. So I can work back and forth on that.